Alright. So I'm kind of awkward because I don't like. First of all, it's kind of late at night. Second of all, I just am kind of shitty at talking. But I wanted to talk about Keith and what Kaxca is, what's going on there. Because I've been thinking about it a lot because, you know, for a long time, a majority of the fandom thought that Keith was gay because of the way he was shown in the show, etc., etc. And, there was a good, foundation for that. So, it's kind of confusing why all of a sudden it's just oh, I guess that's not a thing? But I wanted to talk about it because there's there's a lot of ways that the moments with Kaxca can be taken, especially, the end one, and also, the end one and the one, in that one episode. So, I think the way it was set up is, it's debatable. It is debatable. I know that immediately my first instinct was to just be sad because it's I personally very much headcanoned Keith as a gay character, so I know that there's always the headcanon that he's bi, and I'm opening up more to that, but it was always for me that he was just homosexual, so I'll get used to it eventually. But the point is that basically, there's a lot of ways it could be taken. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And sorry again that I'm super awkward, and sometimes it's recording this makes me a little bit nervous because, getting your opinion out there, spooky stuff, especially in a fandom like Voltron. And sorry if anything sounds wrong. I try to go back and, think about what I said and say, oh, geez, that did not come across as what I wanted to say. But anyways, here we go. So, talk about Kaxca and Keith. It started out with, Kaxca went to break in to the generals, the Ezor and Zethrid. She went to break in because she heard she found out somehow that they had the paladins there. That's what I took from that. And first of all, I'm just wondering how she knew. But that's something else. That's something else completely. Basically, Kaxca broke in to save them. And Ezor and Zethrid theorized that it was because Keith was in the Paladins. Kaxca wouldn't have cared if Keith wasn't there. Now, this kind of does bad for Kaxca because they're making it seem like Kaxca is the only one who gets a redemption arc because she's going to be Keith's love interest. Sorry, kind of got off track there because my sister was making noises and I didn't want that in the video. So I don't really know where I left off. I'll start somewhere. Basically, it was basically shown, at least that from Ezor and Zethrid's point of view, that Kaxca was there for Keith. Which means that which means pretty blatantly that Kaxca probably has feelings for Keith. And the way that is presented is not very well, in my opinion. Because, one, they've only interacted a handful of times, and those interactions were never actually positive. There was, she saved him once, but the look they shared would not clue you into the fact that they might have feelings for each other. Which I think they could have actually made, they could have had a little bit of a smile there or something, but they didn't bother with that. And the two other times, Keith tried to kill her, and Keith thought that she was a guy, and she kind of stabbed his back a little bit with that one. So, I don't really get it, per se, that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Kaxca is, one, getting a redemption arc, and two, suddenly they are romantically a possibility. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I mean, it's a kid's show. You can't expect good writing from a kid's show, especially not Voltron, the way we've seen it. But just, God, it bothers me so much how they did Kaxca's character, because the way they presented her, fully, is actually just a carbon copy of Keith, and she only got a redemption arc to be with Keith, which is frustrating because, again, Voltron, come on, you can do better than that. They bothers me. But basically, that was the point. The point was to, like, episode bothers me so much. The point of that episode, I think, this is the way that it could be taken, and I like to go with the pessimistic route with Voltron, because Voltron, I've already tried being optimistic, and Voltron has always disappointed me, time and time again. I'm done with that. It's best to just accept what's worst, and that way, if it's a little bit better, at least you're not quite as disappointed. With Voltron, at least. Don't apply that to all things in life, because, I mean, I typically think of things in the worst way, and that's my own problem, and I need to stop it, because it makes living hard, but, you know, that's how it be, epic dab. Anyways. But what I find interesting is the way Keith reacted to it. Because, of course, again, it was probably an episode meant to set up, like, the fact that they're going to be romantically implied, because Beck said that she didn't think they were a couple, basically. She didn't say they're not a couple, she basically backhandedly said, I don't think they're a couple. So, Bex probably didn't perceive them as a couple, which means that it's probably an implied romantic endgame. Which, like, again, this might be hard to hear for some of you, because I imagine that right after Voltron Season 7, if I had watched this video with me saying that, it would have hurt a little bit. But, I mean, it's kind of a reality. It's not a good ship, it doesn't have a good dynamic, doesn't have a good build-up, but it's probably going to happen. That's just how it is. Especially with the way they had the end there. Of course, people are theorizing, like, oh, Aksha's gonna lure Keith into Hagar's trap, which, honestly, the more and more I think about it, that could be a thing. That could definitely be a thing. But it's like, the fact still stands that if that happens, it's probably, like, Keith having an interest in Aksha and pursuing her, and then being trapped. I mean, of course, there's always Keith's weird heroism thing, but whatever. I'd like to analyze a little bit the way that they talked before. Because Aksha definitely was having some hard eyes motherfucker for Keith there. Either that, or she was like, I think it could, that one moment, you know, the one there around the campfire, that could be taken, that was probably, again, set up to be romantic, but also it could have been set up just the way it is for it to be taken as friendly, too. Because it could be Keith being, like, a leader, you know, how Shiro was with other people that they met in the Alliance. Because Shiro is LGBT, and, of course, Shiro could be bi, but the way he treated Allura and the way he treated everybody, like, more people they met for the Alliance, is similar to how Keith was smiling, going, thank you for saving us, to Aksha. Which could be Keith, 1, not picking up on Aksha's signals, or 2, Keith awkwardly declining the thing. Or again, it could be Keith smiling and looking softly and be like, okay, this could be a thing for me. Which, I mean, me personally, that's disappointing because not only do I headcanon Keith as homosexual, it's just really not a very good ship. Like, no offense to people who ship it, you do your thing, but writing-wise, Kaxca is just not a good ship. I'm sorry. It's really forced. Like, even if Aksha was a guy, and even if Keith was, like, a girl, it doesn't matter. It is a forced dynamic. Aksha is basically a carbon copy of Keith, which is weird because Keith is both a mix of Shiro and his old self now, which isn't good writing. Because, I mean, Keith shouldn't become Shiro when he becomes a leader. He should be becoming his own version of a leader rather than becoming Shiro, if you know what I mean, but that's not what this is about. Sorry. Basically, again, it's going to be probably implied that they get together at the end, or that they have something going on at the end. But also, it can be taken different ways if you want to take it a different way, because you don't have to look at it and immediately go romantic, because it could not be romantic. Just like with the Clance moment, because if Clance isn't going to be a thing, then maybe that moment wasn't actually as romantic as we all thought it was. Maybe it was just, bro time. Keith and his bro, or whatever. I don't know. It's hard, basically, to really define what happened there. But looking at it the way it is, Voltron is a kid's show that has shown itself to have pretty awful, the producers don't actually get how to do LGBT rep. Let's just face that. They don't know how to do it. I think they tried. I think they might have tried. That doesn't defend what they did, but they might have tried a little bit, but they didn't really get it. Because all they did was just play into harmful tropes within, which, again, in my opinion, harmful representation is worse than no representation. It blows my mind a little bit, actually. But basically, Keith and Kaxca, that episode definitely feels like it was meant to be romantic. That doesn't make the ship good. That doesn't make the writing good for it. That doesn't mean it's just, I think I'll probably do another take of this, but if this is the one that gets up, sorry if any of that was misconceived. I'll try to put something in the description more about, more thoroughly get into it, because it's hard for me to verbalize without somebody actually here to talk to, versus me just talking into my phone, because I'm awkward. Also, I need to annotate my homework. Bye.